On today's show, the Nets face their toughest test of their recent hot streak, and they pass in flying colors, blowing out the Minnesota Timberwolves at Target Center. Is this Brooklyn team for real? I'll answer that and more on today's episode of Locked On Nets.
You are Locked On Nets, your daily Brooklyn Nets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in to Locked On Nets right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Now the number one sports podcast network. It's your team, the Brooklyn Nets, every single day. I'm Erik, Slater, Brooklyn Nets beat reporter for ClutchPoints.com. Thank you for making me your first listen of the day. The show is 100% free on all those great platforms. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Before tip-off, check the FanDuel app and see what's dropping during NBA Happy Hour every Friday from 6 to 7:30 p.m. Eastern. And on today's episode, I'm going to be recapping the Nets' 123-107 win over the Minnesota Timberwolves on Saturday at Barclays Center, a game that felt like a statement win for the Nets. Cam Thomas returns and shines in that second unit. The Nets rookies show out. So I'll get into all that and more. Got Lucas Kaplan coming on the show. Let's go. And joining the show now, we got Lucas Kaplan from Nets Daily. And Lucas, have the Nets arrived? This team may have arrived, man, because, you know, they've had the cupcake schedule, obviously, leading up to this. They had that, whatever it was, 5-3, 6-3 stretch. But it was like, all right, they played a lot of easy opponents, like almost all sub 500 teams. But here come some of the big boys. You got the 76ers, you got the Timberwolves moving forward. They're going to have some more tough teams. But they go into Target Center on Saturday, and they kind of beat the brakes off the Minnesota Timberwolves during a 123-107 blowout win, during which they looked like the better team for, I'd say, the overwhelming majority of the game, if not the whole game. And they kind of did it in a different way in this game, which I thought was interesting. I mean, they didn't catch a heater from three. They shot poorly from three, but they really – and the Timberwolves actually shot fairly well from three, but the Nets won the points in the paint battle by 20 points. They were really – bullying this Minnesota team on the interior. They were protecting the rim. Obviously, Cam Thomas came back. We're going to talk about that. The bench outscored Minnesota's. I think it was 62 to 31 or something along those lines. So this was another really complete performance from this Nets team. And I mean, I've really been questioning it almost every game. Like, is this Nets team going to come back to earth? Is the tank or the T word, is that going to get back on track? And it just hasn't happened yet. And they completely outplayed this Timberwolves team from start to finish. The bench remains very good. I mean, the defense remains very good. The bench unit stacked with Cam Thomas coming back. Rookies are playing better than expected. So it just really seems like the Nets have momentum and they're building something legitimate that a lot of people, including us, I don't really think expected. So what were your feelings watching that game and what did you take away from it?
They were just really good. It was so fun. I was telling you this a minute ago, but like I got a cousin that bets on sports a lot, and I was like, dude, the Nets are going to win tonight, or they're at least going to cover 10.5. I mean, you could just see this coming. The Wolves, they play on Christmas night. It's exhausting. It's overtime. It's an emotional loss. I don't want to look too far ahead yet, but like on Monday, the Nets have the Warriors, who lost today in Toronto in overtime. Like, the Nets, if nothing else, are not a team that you can mess around with. And I know that's like a cliche and a trap game, this and that, but you just know it, or at least it feels like right now, every time they play, they're going to have a really detailed game plan. They're going to execute it pretty well. You can't let them take 40 good threes. And last night, or against the Wolves, it wasn't because they, like you said, caught a heater from three, but it's because Minnesota couldn't defend the paint and the three-point line. They got lucky with a lot of Nets misses, but man, like they just got so much of whatever they wanted. And, if not for the Wolves shooting like 55% from three in the first half, you would really have said the Nets just outplayed them thoroughly for 48 minutes. And there's also a certain someone, I think, if I can recall correctly, who scored a lot of those bench points, but you have to remind me who that is.
We're going to get into it. We're going to get into the CT statement game. And I think overall, like this is a statement game for the Nets. And I think like what you said there was pretty accurate of like, this is a Nets team that teams have to respect now, and you can't really sleep on them. And I think that obviously we all know the narratives coming into the season was that they have one of the least talented rosters in the NBA. It's a tanking season, all that. You're going to have a lot of teams taking them lightly. And that may have been the case, but that wasn't the case in this game, at least coming from the mouth of Anthony Edwards, the Timberwolves superstar player, was asked after the game and said, the question was like, do you feel like you got ambushed somewhat by this Nets team? And he said flat out, like, nope, scout was good. We knew exactly what they were going to do. And he said, like, I guess they were just that much better than us. And he sounded pretty defeated. And I think that's a pretty big compliment to this Nets team from one of the best players in the NBA playing for a top 6 team in a loaded Western Conference.
Yeah, and I mean, like, I think it'd be unfair to the Wolves. I wrote this, like, the Wolves and their coaching staff to just be like, to assume they viewed this game as, oh, it's the Nets, like, we'll beat them. Like, obviously they were very, I think, naturally tired and deflated from their Christmas night game. But the Nets, again, like, the switch-heavy team that we've seen over the last month came out and, like, they were like, okay, well, actually, we're going to trap Julius Randle and, like, we're going to hedge on Dante and not switch every screen out front. Like, they just played really well, and I don't think Minnesota necessarily disrespected them or didn't think they were going to get a good fight. Like, they played really good defense on Michael Porter Jr. for a lot of the game. MPJ hits kind of 3 threes in garbage time-ish to boost his stat line. But yeah, no, it's not like I didn't feel that way watching the game at all. I felt like a fair fight, and like the Wolves definitely won't be happy with how they played. But the Nets, and like if we're gonna get into Cam Thomas in the second segment, we should really say like Tyrese Martin, Jalen Wilson, Zaire Williams, all out of the rotation for this game. The bench unit really cool and fun. It's mostly CT and Day'Ron and 3 rookies. And so we're not even in the new year, and like the rookies are already firmly in the rotation. They're capable of having a game like this, and I want to get into that lineup later because it's like funky and weird and cool. The
CT and the kids.
It's gone full circle from KD and the kids.
Yeah, but I would just say
it just felt like we had everything. We had the bench and them playing well, and the rookies.
I had multiple Nets fans hit me up during and after this game and say that, like, I know, the draft lottery odds, all that stuff, but like, they were like, this is one of the most fun Nets games that I've watched in a while, or most fun Nets performances. And I think I totally agree. I mean, watching that, I was just kind of blown away by the level of play on both ends. I mean, obviously Cam Thomas was a huge part of it. Offensively, we're going to get into that. The defensive end of the floor, there's been a lot of talk of like, they've had the best defense in the NBA in December. Let's see when they really match up with some of these high-level offenses. I mean, they held Tyrese Maxey to 3 of 13 shooting, whatever they did in this game. And I mean, Ant in this game was 10 of 22, but Julius Randle, I thought he looked terrible. I mean, he had some assists, but they just like the overall length and size they have. It's really bothering teams, I feel like, at the rim. And you've spoke about it a little bit on our last episode, but in terms of them, kind of running teams off the 3-point line, funneling them into the paint, and they just have all of this size down low and all of these guys who can make things difficult. And CT coming into that second unit, it didn't really, affect it too much. And I think that second unit did a good job defensively. And then you look at offensively, I mean, they're just playing really crisp basketball. And like, I think it goes back to, the conversation of this team entering the year was like, oh, this is one of the least talented rosters in the NBA. A lot of NBA people, like reporters, podcasters said, like, this is the least talented roster in the NBA. I just disagree, man. Like, is it one of the most talented rosters or more talented rosters? Obviously not. But like, they have talent up and down this roster. I mean, you look at that starting unit. I mean, I think Noah Clowney's leap is a huge part of that. Michael Porter Jr. and Nick Claxton playing the way that they are. Yegor Dioman looking way more competent than you would think. Terrence Mann playing like, okay, it's nothing that's like debilitating. And you look at that starting unit, and then you look at the bench with CT, Day'Ron Sharpe, and how some of these rookies are playing. I mean, this is just a deep team that is playing connected. They're playing, inspired. They're having fun out there. And I just think overall, like, I've been questioning, and a lot of people have been questioning, is this real? Is this Nets team going to be one that can actually like be competitive on a nightly basis? I'm a believer at this point. I mean, they're going to get blown out on some nights against like the top teams in the NBA moving forward, I'm sure. But on a lot of games, they're going to be in it just because I think there is a good baseline level of talent there. And Jordi Fernandez, I mean, you want to talk about a positive. I mean, we're going to get into this later and what does it mean? But like, sure, I've spoken about, like, I think I've been pretty clear that I'm a little, hesitant on them just like giving up on the tank and, kind of cratering their draft lottery odds. And sure, like that could be a negative. But Jordi Fernandez, it's a monstrous positive. Whichever direction they go, if they push for the play-in, if they go for the draft lottery odds in the tank, it's a major positive either way because Jordi Fernandez is showing that he is a top-level coach in the NBA right now, and he's also showing that he knows with this nucleus of guys, he's getting these guys to really play at, I'd say, one of the highest levels that they can. And this Nets core is looking like one where there's a foundation here, which is what you wanted to see coming out of this draft.
Yeah, I mean, you can't shake the belief, no matter how much statistical evidence there is about tanking and increasing your draft odds and where superstars are drafted and where good players are drafted, that this means nothing. Like the wins in a season, the culture, just the vibes, the wins in a season in which we know they're probably not going to make the playoffs. Like they're definitely not going to make the playoffs, but it's hard to feel like it means nothing when you sit, especially like for us. I'm not saying that we know necessarily more because we're around the team more, but when we're in all these press conferences and you hear Sean Marks talk about a vision and you hear the coach talk about the vision, and we are there like all the time. So we hear all the press conferences, we hear all the interviews, and then we hear all the training camp stuff. We hear all the practice stuff. We watch all the games, a lot of times, multiple times. And when everything starts to line up, it's hard to feel like it's going nowhere or it doesn't mean anything. And that is like a very real emotional thing you have to balance with the knowledge that it would probably be statistically better for them to have the best odds in the draft. Now, you know, that being said, it's still so early. There's only 4 teams worse than them there's only 3 teams worse than them that have their own pick. And we don't have to get into that right now, but like, they're just playing so well, and it feels sustainable. Like you said, like they're gonna have bad games and like they're not great, but they're competitive, and it feels like they're gonna give you a good shot every night. And like I said, I'm sitting here, I'm thinking about them playing the Warriors tomorrow. I know the Warriors just had this overtime loss in another city. I'm like, they're gonna win. They're gonna win. Like I'm sitting here, I think they're gonna win. Like truly.
Yeah, and I think last year it was thrown out a lot, like the meaningless wins. Like, these meaningless wins are costing us draft position and all that. And sure, like these ones this season are costing you lottery odds, but they are very far from meaningless. I mean, these are meaningful wins because last year when we saw the Nets winning these games early in the season, it was Dennis Schroeder, Cam Johnson, Dorian Finney-Smith, those guys playing well, all guys that you were fairly confident are not going to be long-term pieces here. And you look at it now with the way that they're playing, all the rookies look better, frankly, than I was expecting. And then you look outside of that, you have guys like, Michael Porter Jr. is young enough to be a part of this next iteration. Nick Claxton, for sure. Day'Ron Sharpe, whoever else you want to say, Cam Thomas, I don't think he's going to be back, but certainly young enough, and it's in the car. It's like, it's not a less than zero possibility. So it's just, there's a lot of guys who are contributing, who look like long-term pieces. And then Jordi Fernandez, I mean, that cannot be discounted. This is a Nets team that's made, I think, 10 coaching changes since the move to Brooklyn. And there just has not been a lot of stability with the head coaching position, frankly, since Kenny Atkinson was let go. And Jordi Fernandez looks like a home run hire. And it looks like this draft also looks like it was a really, at least the early returns are very promising on this draft from Sean Marks. So we'll get into that later. But Cam Thomas, man, coming in, 30 points in 20 minutes off the bench, lighting it up. There were a lot of questions from myself included about how he was going to fit in. And it was a really good first performance from him, at least in regard to, how he could fit and kind of mesh into the new way that the Nets were playing. So what did we see from CT? How do we feel about what it could look like moving forward? We'll get into all that when we continue Locked On Nets after a quick break. Guys, Fridays already feel different during basketball season, and FanDuel is making them even better every Friday night. Before the games tip off, FanDuel gives fans a new way to kick off the weekend with NBA Happy Hour. NBA Happy Hour is your official pregame, a limited time window where special offers drop right inside the FanDuel app before the action starts. Fridays from 6 to 7:30 Eastern have become appointment viewing with NBA Happy Hour. Opening the FanDuel app during Happy Hour always brings something new. Boosts, bonuses, and surprises. It's easy to check the weekly special before tip-off and make a move before the window closes. The timing is perfect, right before the games and right before the weekend starts. So before tip-off, check the FanDuel app and see what's dropping during NBA Happy Hour every Friday from 6 to 7:30 p.m. Eastern. A little basketball, a little action, and a whole lot of Friday energy. That's NBA Happy Hour only on FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, coming back from the break on today's Locked On Nets episode, got Lucas Kaplan here recapping another Nets win, and this time a blowout win over the Minnesota Timberwolves, their best win of the season. And Cam Thomas played a monstrous role in this offensively. Cam comes in, he has 30 points, 4 assists, 0 turnovers, 9 of 15 from the field, 3 of 8 from 3, 9 of 9 from the free throw line. And there were obviously a lot of questions. I mean, myself included. I questioned whether the Nets were going to bring Cam Thomas back. He's obviously on the qualifying offer. I think the future in Brooklyn is beyond the point of murky. And the Nets were clicking. I mean, they were 0-7 with him. We all know what they did without him. So there were questions about whether they were going to bring him back. Jordy says that they're bringing him back. And Jordy, I think, made some comments before this game that were pretty clear that he had a clear expectation for how he wanted Cam to fit in. He obviously spoke with Cam about it. And Cam, he fit in very well in a bench role. And look, one of the main reasons that I was skeptical about whether or not the Nets were going to bring Cam Thomas back is I was skeptical about whether Cam would buy into a scaled down bench role. And in his first game back, he looked more than bought in to that role. I mean, this was one of the best Cam Thomas games that you're going to see. As I said, 30 points, 4 assists, 0 turnovers, efficient. And we've seen games like this from Cam Thomas before. Like, it's not a foreign concept for him to have a game with this level of efficiency. But I just feel like the decision-making, it was quick. The ball wasn't being pounded into the ground. The defensive effort was better. And like I said, we've seen games like this. It's just a matter of consistency. So we're going to have to see it for a lot more games than one. But I thought that the process looked much better compared to the first 7 games, especially the shot selection. I mean, if you look at the shot chart, I posted on Twitter right before we did this episode, but it was almost all rim attempts and all 3-point attempts. It was very few mid-range, tough contested mid-range jumpers, which he was falling a little bit in love with too much, during those first 7 games. And overall, I just think that the bench role is what I said. I've always said I feel like Cam Thomas can be a solid player in the NBA. I just thought he's more geared towards that 6th-man scoring role as opposed to being like the high-usage lead guy in the starting lineup. And he looked really good in that role in this game. Will he stay in that role moving forward? We'll talk about that. But what was your just initial takeaway from the Cam Thomas performance?
It was a great sign that the first bucket he scored was off one of those high post actions, and he seems like he's going to come off like a Chicago action to get the ball, but he back cuts instead. That right there, it's one play, but I don't want to say it set the tone for the night, but that was just a really auspicious start. And Rudy is playing when Rudy's on the court, he's playing in deep drop. Cam can cook against that. We've seen it. He made a couple nice interior passes. The thing about Cam, when his assists are going to the rim, they're going to high percentage shots. He's gotten really good at playing 2-on-2 and throwing the lob over the top. He looked really quick.
Oh my God, dude! He looked
quicker than he's in a long time.
Dude, this it looked very different from the first 7 games of the season, in my opinion. I mean, to me, it looked like, he was out for a long time. He was out for almost 2 months with that hamstring injury. And it looked like they gave him more than enough time to get back. And it looked like he's in really good shape right now. It looked like to me.
They got him really right. He didn't come back when he was first ready. He came back after you can tell he had already been doing a lot of cardio, putting some load on his legs already. And the way it's so enticing when he is showing that north-south, cutting like a knife through hot butter, all the way to the rim and these long strides. And he's not the, greatest vertical athlete, but people have talked about the decline in dunks since his rookie year. And, he didn't dunk on anybody against the Wolves, but he just looked really forceful downhill. And it just was the perfect, honestly, Cam Thomas game, because he was this idealized, more than a spark plug off the bench, a guy that the Wolves couldn't guard. And, they're playing with Rudy and then no other center, which helps. And this is a little bit of a tangent, but this lineup where Cam can kind of carry this big load for the offense and this ridiculous shot maker, and then Day'Ron is just kind of doing everything on both ends of the floor under the rim. And you have these two, hubs are not the right word, but these guys just doing all the stuff. And then the 3 rookies are kind of fitting in where they can around it. It's just a fun lineup. And it's like a full circle moment to see the 2021 draft class, these guys taken at the end of the first round that have turned into productive NBA players, surrounded by 3 19-year-olds. Danny's a little older, but I had just a great, best time I've had watching Cam Thomas, honestly, in a long time.
Yeah, and I think you and I, obviously, we both had, our gripes with some of the process and the way that Cam Thomas has gone about stuff in the past. But we both said that he, the the discourse surrounding Cam Thomas seems to be like the group that thinks he's a star and then the group that thinks he's just trash and he's like a negative player. And I've said, I think on our episode we did about the narratives about Cam Thomas after that Spurs game where he had 40 and 0 assists, I said, like, it's nuanced. It's somewhere in the middle probably. And I think that Cam Thomas can be a very solid player if he buys into playing a certain way that frankly, like, he hasn't for extended stretches throughout these first 5 seasons of his career. But this was like the vision of how you do it. It's him being this guy who's obviously this offensive shot creator, but not doing it by just pounding the ball into the ground and dribbling the shot clock the entire possession. Like, he'll do that on some possessions, sure, but it's quick decisions. It's getting downhill. It's putting pressure on the rim. It's 3-point attempts. It's getting out in transition. It's giving at least passable defensive effort. And I think that we more that saw that from him. And I really like, I know there's a lot of people who are, hesitant to the Cam Thomas bench role, 6-man role thing. But this is really been what I'm saying, that I feel like this is the optimal role for him because it, sets the offense up where he doesn't completely dominate the offense, but he has opportunities to cook. Like, he's not just the complete featured guy posting the 30 to 35% usage. And then defensively, kind of you insulating him in the second unit and letting him run with those lineups, it kind of mitigates the defensive limitations somewhat because the minutes aren't as huge and you're also playing him with second units as opposed to having to play him alongside a guy like Michael Porter Jr. or whatever other not great defensive guy you have for extended stretches. So I thought that was also a big part of it. Him and MPJ didn't play a lot together and they looked terrible on the court together during those first 7 games. So I really liked the way this 6-man role looked for him. I don't know if he's going to buy into it in the long term, but it looked really good in this game. And I hope that he does buy into it moving forward.
And you also saw some of the versatility, like in terms of him being probably literally their best ball handler. And Jordy gets him back into the game at the end to like literally handle the ball. And so it's, I was looking at his average touch time because it felt shorter against the Wolves, but it was still where it's been all season. And part of that is right. I think a lot of it handling the ball. There were times where he's on the court with Nolan and he's like bringing the ball up the court. And I was a little like, okay, like why is Nolan even on the court then? But not as a knock on Cam, as a knock on just the overall thing. But he was great. And it is sort of you always have this. It's tough because not many people in the world can do what Cam Thomas does. Before we get into value and impact, like you watch him and it's just like nobody can do this. Like I'm laughing my ass off on that end one he has where he dribbles all the way down the court and then he dribbles back and then he dribbles in again and he gets an end one. It's like only Cam, man. And
another play before you keep going, play I was laughing my ass off on was when he got on the left wing and he kind of like gave it to Day'Ron, got it back from Day'Ron. He had 2 guys on him. He faked to the top of the key with like a half spin move, went left away from the double team and just pulled up in like a 3-foot window from 3 on the left wing and splashed it. Like, those are the moments where you're like, this guy's a next level, like all world scorer. It's just, you got to put it together in the other areas. But he like you said, he does things like not like very few other people could do.
The Wolves broadcast, unfortunately, I don't think it was Grady on the call, which would have been nice. But like the Wolves broadcast on that play was just laughing, like just like in shock and awe. And Cam produces that in a lot of people. And then the other half of it is like, you have to be just the bar to do that in the NBA, even if there's not many guys that can do what he can do, is just so high. And I don't want to like bash him the day after he had this great game, but the bar is just so high to be kind of this ball pounding creator. But when you take all these threes, you get to the rim, you have these lob assists to Day'Ron Sharpe, and then you get to the line all the time. Like it does provide this really high floor for you as a scorer. And like I've talked about, Yegor is going to have a really like low floor for a while because he doesn't get a lot of easy ones and he's heavily dependent on the 3. You can't getting to the line, and like when he looks this fast, it feels like it provides a baseline because he's getting by people. And it's like it feels wrong that he could ever not be a net. It feels like we're destined to just go through this with Cam forever,
Really? You think so? Does this change your long term? I mean, it's one game. Like, it needs to, like I said, we've seen games like this from Cam before. We're going to need to see an extended stretch of it. But does this one game like change anything for the way that he bought into the role for this one game about the long-term prospect of him being back with the team?
No, because he is always like good as hell in his first game back from injury.
Yeah, this is like he does this all the time. He always cooks in his first game back.
But it's just like when he has these games, man, like it just feels like he can't not be on this team.
This is why the discourse surrounding him is the way it is, of like people being so tantalized by the things he can do, because when it's clicking, it looks so incredible like this, and he provides moments, and it looks so easy in ways that few other guys can do it, around the NBA. So we'll see. Like, we'll talk about, I'm sure, if he stays in the lineup, like whether he stays in the 6-man role. We'll talk about him moving forward. The snag I kind of hit with it is I'm not sure that he wants to be in a six. I mean, I know he doesn't want to be in a 6-man role moving forward. He told me that at the end of last season, he feels like he's one of the best guards in the NBA. So why would he want to be in a 6-man role? And I don't think he wants to make 6-man money. The caveat to that is if there aren't those big offers or that big role isn't available to him throughout the rest of the NBA, does he then warm up to the idea of staying with the Nets in that kind of role? So we'll see how all that plays out, but really great game from Cam in terms of the process, in terms of him buying into the role, in terms of how it looked with the rest of this Nets team. And it'll be really interesting to see how it looks with him moving forward. But like you said, Cam and the kids, I mean, the rookies looked great in this game. And they're a big reason why this Nets team is exceeding expectations right now. So what did we see from them? And what are the overall expectations for this team? What the hell are we watching for the rest of this season? We'll get into all that when we close out Locked On Nets after a quick break. All right, coming back from the break, closing out today's Locked On Nets episode with Lucas Kaplan. And Lucas, we spoke at the top about the Nets exceeding expectations. They're starting to feel real. And obviously a huge part of why they're exceeding expectations is Michael Porter Jr. We've talked about that ad nauseum. Obviously Noah Clowney and Nick Claxton are playing well. The defense looks much improved. But in a game like this, they had 4 rookies in the rotation in this game. And, it's a game where all of those rookies, I mean, Yegor struggled, but just overall for the whole season, all of these rookies are not really glaring negatives out there. And that has been a big reason why this Nets team is playing so much better than I expected them to, is because you have guys like Yegor Dillman, like Drake Powell, Danny Wolf, now Nolan Shore getting in the lineup, being in there and being functional NBA players as rookies, as 19-year-olds, 21-year-olds in Danny Wolf case, that aren't killing you out there and are actually making positive plays. So I thought it was a big, in this game, Yegor struggled, but wasn't a glaring negative. All 3 of the bench guys I thought looked really good. And overall, this draft class is just playing much better than I expected. We both said entering the season that it's very rare for rookies to come in and be positive impact guys and contribute to winning. And these Nets rookies aren't doing that every game, but they're not glaring negatives. They're much better than I expected them to be. And that is a credit to Sean Marks and BJ Johnson in this scouting department. And we're going to have to see it for much longer, but the early returns, really impressive. And I think Nolan Troy, Drake Powell, Danny Wolf all had really encouraging and solid moments during this Timberwolves game.
Yeah. And I never thought that you could play the 3 of them, and have them win minutes and it not feel fluky. It's not like they were hitting a bunch of ridiculous shots. And I'm telling you, man, Nolan's defense continues to be okay, I see it. He's 6'4", 6'8" wingspan. Going back to the Philly game, he had some really nice individual plays on Jared McCain. And I know that's this version of McCain, who doesn't look as spry as last year, is a good matchup for Nolan, but still, and he's making the hustle plays. And, Danny's outside shooting is coming back to earth a little bit, and the defense can be hit or miss, but he's not killing you. And it's not shade. It's really hard to do that. And then the funny thing about Yegor is he really does just chill for a lot of the game. And this role that he's in, it's not, he's not being asked to do a ton. At BYU, he was high pick and roll every single possession, and they were awesome. And they had a top 5 offense. And I was kind of skeptical about what that would look like in the NBA. And if he's not, taking all these threes, barring a couple outlier games, he's not really doing a ton, but it also means he's not really that much of a negative. And a huge part of it is because you can only be so bad on defense if you're 6'9" and you generally know where to be. He got back cut a couple times, but he's He's big, dude.
Yeah,
He's
that's a big
guy.
part of like Sean Marks told us that after the draft, like he was giving the sell. And the two things that he said off the bat were, we think he's going to be a really high level shooter, which I think he's shown very promising glimpses that he can be that. And they said we're pretty high on his defensive capabilities and his size and his ability to be, a positive guy on and off the ball there. And I think that the size, like we've outlined the vision with Jaeger, I think you continue to see it in this game. I was really impressed, man, with Nolan, Danny, I mean, Drake, all of them. But Nolan, I think the guy's, been played the fewest minutes by far out of all these guys. We had multiple drives to the rim where he looked good. He took care of the ball for the most part. He had that play where he drew a charge. I mean, defensively, he's just a pest. Like, it's nothing crazy, but I think that for a player we had major questions about, he's come in and he's been a positive. And I think that that's more than you can ask for at this point. I think that his activity, his size, all the things that you were pointing to, it looks like another guy where you can see the vision. And I mean, all these Nets guys you can see the vision with, I feel like, for the rookies. Drake Powell comes in, just plays good defense, hits like every floater he takes, it feels like. Danny Wolf hits a few threes, has a few drives to the basket where he finishes over big men. Just overall, I mean, hats off to Sean Marks. I mean, he got killed for this draft class. That whole front office got clowned for this draft class. And sure, it's way too early to victory lap. Like, they have a long way to go, but it looks pretty, it looks like there's a very good chance that multiple of these guys are going to be functional NBA players, which is what you're looking for in the draft. I mean, the draft is often a crapshoot.
Yeah, and these guys seem like they all have real skills, and it's like even like the advanced metrics, like EPM, they're all kind of, I think Powell's a little low, but they're all pretty much floating around like middle of the pack, like 50th percentile. I know it's a little early, but Jaeger is, I don't know if this is still the case. He's part of the second most played lineup in the NBA, and that lineup is winning its minutes. I just did not.
Yeah, it's great.
I just did not think, and it's not like he's playing with Nikola Jokic and like LeBron James and stuff. No offense to Terrence Mann and Nick Claxton and MPJ, but he's playing all these minutes and they're winning his minutes, and I think the floor is higher. And kind of to bring it full circle, why these wins feel so good. This is going to be the team next year, more or less.
Yeah.
Like, maybe they trade a couple guys and, they're going to add, right, at least one draft pick. Maybe, they make a trade or whatever. But if not the skeleton of this team, this is like the team next year. And they're going to want to win. They don't want to hand over another top 5 draft pick to another team. And whether that influences whether they trade MPJ or Clax, like whatever, who knows. But last year, like, you knew that wasn't the team.
Yeah.
Barring, like, we didn't even see Clowney because he was hurt all the time. And Nick felt like, why is he even here? But now, what a difference a year makes. This is the team. They're doing awesome stuff. And these are essentially the guys that are going to be trying to make the play-in at least next season, barring like a crazy trade. And guess what? They're one loss. They're one game in the loss column behind the play-in right now.
Yeah, I mean, that's nuts. Like, the whole turnaround is nuts. We'll see. I mean, like, it ebbs and flows in the NBA. I think they're building something real. They could lose 6 straight games. Like, we'll see. Like, basketball is a game of runs within the micro and within the macro. So we'll see how it goes moving forward. But it feels like there's a lot of things that are really encouraging. And, like, look, maybe they fall in the draft lottery, odds. Maybe they get lucky. Maybe the basketball gods finally shine down on the Nets and they finally reward the Nets. Lucas is shaking his head. I'm going to just keep talking over it and speak it into existence, but we'll see. I mean, like, really positive stuff, and I'm really excited to see how the Nets continue to play moving forward, especially as they get into a few, they got the Warriors, they got the Rockets, they have a few more really good teams coming up. So we'll see. Is it a play and push? Is it, pivoting back to a tank? It seems like the tank is just dead at this point. But we'll see how it all plays out. But their best win of the season, and I think one where there were a lot of really encouraging aspects for the long term. So nice to see. But Lucas, appreciate taking the time as always. We got the Warriors tomorrow, so we'll have you back on soon. And maybe we'll be talking about the Nets team being in that 10th seed like next week. Who knows? That does it for today's Locked On Nets episode. Hope you guys enjoyed the talk with Lucas. If you do not already, make sure to subscribe to Locked On Nets on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts, whether Apple Podcasts or Spotify. If you enjoy the content, take a second, smash that like button, leave a comment, leave a 5-star review. Anything you can do to engage is much appreciated. The Nets got the Warriors tomorrow, another tough matchup. So I'll be on here covering that and more when I'm back tomorrow, talking more Brooklyn Nets basketball.